You already know how Titanic ends. The iceberg, the sinking, over 1,500 people dead. But here's what most people have never been told. The ship that shocked the world was built by kids, not teenagers helping out from a safe distance. Kids catching red hot metal with their bare hands, standing on scaffolding so high you could see all of Belfast stretched out below, working 12-hour shifts in the loudest, most dangerous place on earth. Think about that. 12 hours. That was like going to school and doing school again and then doing another 2 hours on top every single day. And almost every single one of those kids has been forgotten until now. To understand this story, you need to picture Belfast in 1909. It was one of the biggest industrial cities in the entire world. Smoke in the sky every morning, factories running day and night, thousands of people flooding into the city looking for work. And right in the edge of water, was a place called Harland Wolff, the biggest shipyard on the planet. 15,000 people out there at its peak. 15,000. That is more people than most towns. They built ships so enormous they blocked out the sky when you walked past. For most families in Belfast, Harland Wolff was not just a job, it was survival. Fathers brought their sons brought their brothers, generation after generation. And here's the thing that surprised me most when I found out about this story. You did not have to be an adult to work there. Apprentices were taken on as young as 14 years old. 14! That is younger than most people reading this right now. And they were not making tea or sweeping floors. They were doing some of the most dangerous work in the entire shipyard. No choice about it. Their families needed them only. In March 1909, Harland Wolff began building the most ambitious ship ever attempted, Titanic. The numbers are almost impossible to get your head around. The finished ship weighed 46,000 tons, the largest moving object ever built by human hands. Up to that point, as tall as an 11-story building, longer than 4 football pitches laid end to end, and every single piece of it had to be built by hand. 3 million rivets held Titanic together. 3 million. Each one had to be heated until it glowed orange, thrown across the shipyard to a catcher and hammered into place, all within a few seconds before it cooled down. Now this is where the kids come in. Each rivet team had a heater, a catcher, a holder, and the riveters themselves. The heater was often a teenager, the rivet into a small furnace until it glowed red hot. Then he would grab it with tongs and throw it upward to the catcher above him. The catcher's job was to grab the red hot rivet in a metal tin, take it out with tongs, and hold it perfectly steady against the hull, ready for the riveters to hammer it in. That catcher, or one catching a piece of glowing metal thrown up from below, was often a boy of 13 or 14 years old. Imagine that being your Saturday job. No gloves that actually worked against heat, no hard hat, no safety rule, just you, a tin bucket, and a piece of flying red hot metal hundreds of times a day, every day. And if you missed, you would definitely know about it. I want to tell you about one boy in particular. His name was Samuel Scott. Samuel was just 15 years old. He was 3 years older than a lot of people watching this. He worked as a catchboy on Titanic, one of the boys catching those red hot rivets every single day. In 1910, Samuel had an accident at work. He fractured his skull. He died. Samuel Scott is believed to be the very first person killed during the construction of Titanic. He was 15 years old, For nearly 100 years after he died, his grave in Belfast City Cemetery had no headstone, no name carved in stone, no marker to say he had ever existed. The boy, who was Titanic's first victim, who lay in an unmarked grave, he was not the only one. 8 workers died building Titanic. The youngest was 15. One was a heater boy named John Kelly, aged just 19. And 3 of the 8 workers are still completely unknown. Their names were never written down. 8 people died building the most famous ship in history, and most people alive today have never heard a single one of their names. Next time someone asks what your favourite subject is at school, remember that Samuel Scott never got to finish school at all. Not everyone connected to Titanic was forgotten. One man from Belfast became part of the ship's story in a very different way. His name was Thomas Andrews. Andrews grew up in County Down. He joined Harland Wolff as an apprentice at 16 years old. Same age as someone starting their GCSEs. And from that starting point, he worked his way through every single department in the shipyard until eventually he became the main designer of Titanic itself. He knew that the ship better than any person alive. Every corridor, every bulkhead, every inch of steel. Here is something most Titanic videos will never tell you. Thomas Andrews had actually warned the ship's owners about safety problems before Titanic ever left Belfast. He wanted 64 lifeboats in the ship. They used 20. He wanted a stronger hull built up higher than the size of the ship to make it much harder to sink. They said no. Every safety change he asked for was overruled. When the iceberg struck and the ship began to flood, Andrews walked every corridor. He checked every damaged section. He did the calculations nobody else wanted to. And then he went to the captain and told him the truth. Titanic was going to sink within 2 hours. He spent the rest of that night helping passengers into lifeboats, calm, focused, not once thinking about himself. A stewardess named Mary Sloan, Corey called him walking up to her and saying, "Get your lifeboat on, do not waste a single minute." Then he sent her to a lifeboat and walked back into the ship. A witness later reported seeing Andrews standing alone in the first class smoking room, arms folded, staring at a painting in the wall above the fireplace. His life jacket lying in the chair beside him. A steward called over and said, "Aren't you going to have a try for it, Mr. Andrews?" He never answered. He never moved. Thomas Andrews never made it off Titanic. He was 39 years old. A Belfast man who designed the ship warned him it wasn't safe enough, was ignored. And then, with it, until the very end, his body was never found. When news of the sinking reached Belfast, the city went silent. The same workers who had cheered when Titanic launched, who had spent 3 years of their lives building her, now read the headline saying she was gone. While the rest of the world focused on the first class passengers and famous names, the workers of Belfast, the actual people who built the ship, got almost no attention. No memorial for decades. A 15-year-old boy, Titanic's very first victim, had no headstone on his grave for nearly 100 years. The story of Titanic became about the passengers, not the builders. What I want to see you to take away from this: 15,000 Belfast workers helped build Titanic. Fathers and sons, brothers and boys younger than most people who will ever watch this video. They showed up before dawn every single morning. They worked in the cold and the noise and the danger. They caught burning metal in tin buckets. They climbed scaffolding. Without the safety harness, they put 3 million rivets into that ship by hand. and they built the most famous vessel in the history of the world. Today in Belfast, you can visit the Titanic Museum right in the same ground where the ship was built. Millions of people go every year, and in a small club on D Street in East Belfast, there is a black marble plaque on the wall. It lists the 8 workers who died building Titanic. 3 of those spaces are still blank because no one ever wrote their names. Titanic has been in films, books and documentaries for over 100 years, but the real story, the boys in the scaffolding, the teenagers scratching red hot metal, the men who gave 3 years of their lives to build something incredible, that story is only now being told. Samuel Scott was only 15 years old. He got up one morning and went to work, and at the biggest shipyard in the world. He got hot rivets all day, every day, so that Titanic could be built, and he never came home. Remember his name. Untold Irish history, real stories, real Ireland. Untold until now.